Good evening, ghouls and fiends. Welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host, as per usual, Tezz. We are live on twitch.tv/Tezzis, Tezzrius. If you aren't already, give the channel a follow. Maybe think about giving it a subscribe, I'm not sure. I haven't been streaming as much recently. Yeah, streaming is an as and when thing. Once again, I mean, such is life. With the wedding later this year, overtime, additional work, and whatnot, they all kind of become the priority. And I'd sort of hoped that I could create a little bit of supplementary income via doing streaming a bit more regularly. But I think you have to have a lot of drive to really push streaming to make it viable to earn even a few quid here and there. So I'm going to be doing what I can when I can. If I have a week where I can do a horror stream on a Monday and a chilled game on a Wednesday, then great. But I can't say that I'm going to be regularly able to do that. And I think, that's just to be a bit transparent, because it has been very on and off when I am able to stream. We haven't done a Sunday retro stream for a long time, which is a shame. But in the interim, we have been doing some gaming off stream, and even my fiance's done some gaming. So I picked her up the Disney Dreamlight Valley game on Switch, and she'd heard about it from her tattoo artist and showed a bit of interest, and I thought, okay, well, I don't really want to spend money on it. If she's going to play it for 5 minutes, then give up on it. But no, she's addicted to it. So much so I haven't really seen my Switch recently. I did pick up the GTA trilogy, Definitive Edition trilogy, as a way also to play it again. But when I said to her, there's games that I want to play on there, my Final Fantasy X save I am still working on every so often, not as often as I had been. And she said, we'll have to get another one then. And I thought, is that giving me the okay to get Switch 2? I don't know. Switch 2 has released this week. We're going off on a complete tangent. We're not even talking about horror at the moment. We will do, for listeners and viewers. We will talk about horror, don't worry, but I always have a little bit of a ramble at the start of the show. Yeah, I did have that sort of FOMO feeling where I knew Switch 2 was being released, and I was like, well, I'm not getting it because I'm getting married this year. I don't have the money to get a console at the moment. Also, the games look very overpriced for it. Also, the screen's not OLED, but the last Switch was. That seems a bit odd. And also, the majority of the launch games are just games that have been out for like 5 years. All of these things I was telling myself, right? Reasons not to get it. Reasons it doesn't really look like it justifies spending the 300-400 quid on it. But I still do now that it's out, and now that I see people playing it. Even the people that are talking about the issues with it, the drift issue that's still there, I still have that feeling of FOMO, which is so ridiculous. But here we are. Outside of that, I have picked up a really cheap horror game on Xbox, which I will try at some point to get around to streaming, called Post Trauma. It's got a really interesting feel to it. It has a feeling sort of like 360, I would say. I'm not going to say modern graphics, but 360 graphics on like an old Resident Evil 2 sort of camera angles. It's like that Resident Evil 2 mixed with Silent Hill, but the classics, but with modern graphics. It's quite creepy. It's also quite difficult in terms of the puzzles and knowing what to do. But yeah, it's called Post Trauma. Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of that. Got that dirt cheap on Xbox Store. Fran is in the chat. Eddie's in the chat as well. Hey guys, hope you're both well. Fran says, you like single player horror? Yes, I do. The Alone in the Dark game with David Harbour, Jodie Comer's a PS Plus free game this month. Yes, I've played a little bit of that before on Xbox, and it is good. I think I got stuck. So it's one of those things where I probably needed to just free up some time and actually play it properly. In terms of single player game, and the main game that I'm playing at the moment is Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I've got quite a good chunk into that game, so I sort of feel that I should actually see it through and finish it before playing anything else. Because I had been playing it for a little while. Then Claire Obscura, Expedition 33, Claire Obscura, landed on Game Pass. So I played a little bit of that. Oblivion Remaster, landed on Game Pass, played a bit of that. But I thought, just fucking hell. 40 plus hour RPGs. I like occasionally, but I also like a good 6 to 15 hour single player game. At the moment, I don't really have any of those. But I'm 20 odd hours into Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I feel that I'm a good chunk into the game. I'm probably nowhere near halfway, but I feel like I'm doing good progress. And it's the sort of game where I can just drop in, do a couple of quests, get a level up, move on. So that's what I'm playing at the moment. That's kind of what I'm mainlining. Eddie says, "Oh God, what happened last time with that cheap £1 horror game? Yeah, that was terrible. Scentphobia Hotel, something like that. That was bad. So I don't really play much of that at all. But no, so far post trauma, I'm quite liking the style of it. When you encounter the first monster, it is quite creepy. We'll talk. So this is a live stream. Later on, we are going to stay on live, and we're going to do a watch party. I'm not sure what we're going to watch yet. I'll figure it out. Before we kind of get into the show, I will sort of just touch on. I have been watching a bit more wrestling. I did rejoin AEW Plus to watch AEW. I haven't watched this week's Fight Fest because it is 4 hours long. It's I've watched half of it across yesterday and today. It's too long for one sort of sitting for me where it's not a PLE. Okay, decent. AEW does seem to be at the moment, touchwood, turning a corner. Speaking of wrestling, there is a little bit of and it's non-wrestling related, but fans of Ministry of Horror, there's a little bit of a natural overlap from a show that I previously was in the live chats for, a long-time podcast listener. Did a couple of guest appearances in its not original iteration, but one of its earlier iterations when there was a number of hosts on. It went away. It came back. I did a couple of guest little bits there, which then started Ministry of Horror podcast. And then I was doing Ministry of Horror podcast concurrently with another podcast, Ministry of Slam. Now, that is the only wrestling connection here. I'm not talking about our wrestling podcast, but there are discussions, non-wrestling, non-horror related, for me to do a bit of co-hosting on a potential new podcast with a member of the Information Superhighway who was previously affiliated with the aforementioned wrestling podcast. Can't say too much at this stage. We're just in the early discussion stages, but it is non-wrestling, non-horror related. But very exciting. So watch this space. Keep following the YouTubes. There's also a great band experience out there at the moment called Nothing But a Good Time. Be sure to check them out on socials and follow their YouTube. That's all I'll say at this stage. Anyway, horror related. So for today's show, we got a couple of early screeners for films that we're reviewing. One of them I didn't get an early screener for. It actually came out a while ago, but I finally got around to watching Companion. I rented that on Amazon Prime for a $5. Actually, it was free because Victoria had like a £5 credit, so that was nice. She kindly gifted that to me. But then I have screeners for early releases of, and I'm just a bit late at doing the reviews of them, for Consecration, the new Christopher Smith film. I believe it's Christopher Smith. Yes, who did Triangle, Creep, and Temple. And also Piglet, which turns out was written by the same guy who did Mouse of Horrors, which we did a live viewing of a while ago, and I reviewed on a following show. Not that I want to bury the lead on the review at all. No. But just to let you know, I did not know that was the background for the film when I was given a copy to watch and watched it. That's all I'll say. Anyway, Ghouls and Fiends, I have rambled on for quite long enough. We got some horror news to talk about, and let's just get to it. This is the news. Ho, 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 ho.
You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand?
There we go. I feel my camera light is quite dark. Let's just be as unprofessional as we usually are and adjust the lighting. Feels a little bit too mysterious at the moment. So, Ghouls and Fiends. We've done some horror gaming. We've done some horror watching. It's quite unlike us, really. Let's look at my presets. Let's do Cozy Candlelight. No, that's too dark. Let's do Bright Warm Candlelight. No. Let's do Mild Afternoon. No, that's... No. Let's do Soft Sunset. Let's do Bright Cool Blue. You know what? Actually, that's probably the best one so far. It's blindingly light, but we'll go with it. Dad Dancing Tezz is back. What you talking about, Willis? Eddie says in the chat, there's a new Dracula trailer. I've not seen it myself. Can't say I've seen it. So it's popping off in the group chat. We'll have a look at that shortly. So we are going to jump into the horror news. Got a few things to talk about, a few little tidbits to go through. All of our horror news comes from bloodydisgusting.com. Be sure to check them out on socials, on their website. Loads of great horror news, reviews, articles. It's good stuff. Anyway, we're going to start off first with an article by your boy John Squires. Alien Earth. I really shouldn't have downed some Desperado just before going into the news. It's repeating. It's repeating on me. I'll try not to burp into the microphone. Anyway, Alien Earth. Official trailer unleashes monsters from the darkest corners of the universe. The Alien franchise comes to Earth and the small screen for the very first time in Alien Earth, and the official trailer for creator Noah Hawley's series has arrived this morning. Alien Earth will premiere with the Horrors series' first 2 episodes on August 12th at 8 p.m. on FX and Hulu in the US and Disney Plus internationally. New episodes will follow weekly on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. through September 23rd. Watch the official trailer online now. Alien Earth is set before the events of the original Alien in 2120. A ship charged with collecting monsters from the darkest corners of the universe crash lands on Earth, and one of the monsters is, of course, the legendary Xenomorph. But the Alien Earth trailer makes it clear that it's not the only monster our human and android characters will have to deal with. From creator Noah Hawley, Alien Earth deals with the emergence of the story's infamous Weyland-Yutani Corporation and the race between corporations to create new android life. Here's the official plot synopsis. 5 corporations, Prodigy, Weyland-Yutani, Lynch, Dynamic and Threshold, wield the power of nations, and proprietary advancements in technology provide the promise of a new tomorrow. When a mysterious space vessel crash lands on Earth, a young woman and a ragtag group of tactical soldiers make a fateful discovery that puts them face to face with the planet's greatest threat. Yeah, okay. We've talked about Alien Earth quite a bit. When Alien Earth was announced at the same sort of time as Alien Romulus, I found myself more drawn to Romulus due to the director, due to the brief plot synopsis. Alien Earth, I don't know much about Noah Hawley. I know he did the TV series of Fargo. I've never seen it. I enjoyed the film, never seen the TV series. But not much was said about at that point about the plot, but it had a very bloated looking cast, and it seemed like it was a bit of a teen thing on Earth, and the whole setup of it being on Earth. Basically, the long and short of it was the film I was interested in, the TV series I was very, very skeptical about. The marketing for this TV series so far, I think, has been incredible. They've been giving so many little teasers, but in such a way that it just doesn't feel like everything is being given away. You sometimes run the risk when you have a number of teasers and trailers and additional trailers and final trailers, where it can feel like, I feel like I've seen the whole thing now. But they've done it in this way where they've done the marketing, where you have these captain's logs from the ship that was carrying the vessels, carrying the monsters, the aliens. You then have the TV trailers that there's been different images released from, where you're getting glimpses of the Xenomorph. So it's making it clear this isn't one of those things that's called Alien, but the alien just doesn't feature in it. No, we have a Xenomorph in this. But also we have other aliens. Xenomorphs aren't the only destructive beings out there in the universe. Like, I quite like that. I don't want the xenomorph to be diluted because that is meant to be front and center, but at the same point, showcasing in an alien series other alien life forms, I think is going to be quite unique. Now, we have seen Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but a lot of that came from, well, it's a direct result of mutations from the black goo, and the xenomorph appears to be a mutation from the black goo, or a direct, blah, blah, blah. The black goo, which I can give or take the black goo. I liked its inclusion in Romulus, and, it's a nice hint that it's not just ignoring those entries. If the black goo doesn't appear in the TV series, I'm not going to be mad. I'll just put it that way. If it does appear, okay, fine, but I want the focus to be on evil Weyland-Yutani Corporation seeking to exploit terrifying beasts from the universe for their own financial, political, military gain, and finding themselves way out of their depth with plucky heroes overcoming the terrifying obstacles, that sort of thing. Do I want an alien queen in this? Yes. I'm sick of the gap in films, the alien queen. We need our queen back. I want to watch Alien Earth and go, "Yas, Queen," when the Queen arrives. And I know that sounds so odd, but we need the Alien Queen back. It's been too many films. The Alien Queen, standout moment of Aliens, an incredible film, but that was a huge moment. It got done dirty in Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, but especially Alien Resurrection. The Alien Queen, I think, was the only good thing about Alien vs. Predator. It's a bit of a dumb action film. It's fine if you just want to turn your brain off for an hour and a half, not look at it as an alien film. It's dumb, it's mildly entertaining, but it's not a serious entry. But the Queen, I think, was kind of cool in it, even if it was a little bit over the top. Anyway, bring the Queen back. In something, whether it's the Romulus sequel, give us a proper Hive, show us the Queen. There you go. Disney, you got a princess right there. Add it in. Let's look at what else we've got in the news. Mike's Chrome is being a little bit slow. There we go. Next up, this will be good news for Fran, if Fran hasn't seen it already. Blumhouse reportedly acquiring Saw franchise rights from Twisted Pictures. John Squires writes, "There's been a lot of talk about the future of the Saw franchise in recent months, with some suggesting that the franchise is dead in the wake of Saw 11 being pulled from the release schedule. Coming off a successful 10th installment, Saw 11 was set to release on September 26, 2025, but turmoil behind the scenes left the fate of the franchise, hanging in the balance. Deadline provides a shocking update on the state of Saw tonight, reporting that Blumhouse is acquiring the prospective rights to Twisted Pictures' portion of the Saw franchise. Blumhouse has essentially taken over the IP's ownership from Twisted's Mark Berg and Oren Knowles, the exclusive report reveals. Lionsgate will continue to be involved as a partner. How this apparently works is that Lionsgate owned 50% of the rights to Saw, while Twisted Pictures owned the other half, and Blumhouse will be acquiring Twisted's half. From what we understand, Twisted Pictures and Lionsgate had disagreements that spelled the end of the Saw 11, planned Saw 11, and temporarily left the franchise's future in limbo. According to Deadline's report, an 11th installment in the franchise isn't currently in development, though we can expect the Saw saga will be back on the big screen before long. In an interesting twist, Deadline also notes that the Blumhouse deal will bring original Saw co-creator James Wan back into the franchise fold, thanks to the recent merger between Blumhouse and James Wan's Atomic Monster. Stay tuned for more as we learn it. So, exciting news. So, Saw is a series where for a long time, I was like, I like the first couple, and that's kind of it. I went off it in Saw 3. I thought that was just exploitative. Not exploitative. I thought it was just, that's where, to me, it had gone into the torture porn direction. And I'd seen a couple of others, and that was it. But then, thanks to doing this show, and thanks to the joy of doing a series review, a retrospective, which is something I do want to start planning out a little bit more and bringing a bit more back, which I had discussed doing either Wrong Turn or Wolf Creek before realising that neither were readily available, and if purchasing them was quite expensive. So put those to one side for the moment. But through watching the Saw series for the episode we did last year, I believe, man, I got an appreciation for this series. It's one of those things where you think the prospect of binge watching Saw films is sadistic. It's who would do that to themselves? But that is a film series that does work due to its interconnectivity. I think if you were to watch them really, really far apart, unless you follow the series quite closely, it can be a bit confusing as to where they all fit in the timeline because, films are set at different stages. They have different interconnections from one film's timeline to another. It's one timeline, but one film's entry and its placement to another. But watching them all quite close together, I generally enjoyed all of them. I think the only ones that I was a bit like meh about were Saw. Oh god, the Saw with the laser beams, which I think was like Saw 9 maybe or Saw 8. I'm not sure. I wasn't too. I didn't. I thought that one had good traps, but as a story, I didn't think was all that great. The prequel, and Spiral from the Book of Saw, I thought was okay. It's a bit different, but the reveal of who the person behind these crimes was, I thought was really quite cheesy. I didn't really like that much, but I got a good appreciation for the series. Jigsaw is the one that I wasn't a big fan of. Thank you, Fran, in the chat. And Fran also says, good to hear it's not game over for the series. Very, very good. And Eddie in the chat saying in regards to the the alien news, I can see you saying that. Yas Queen. God. Hey, I set myself up for that one. What can I say? Now, next up, we've got some news, and this does relate to something that Eddie the Beast had put into the Discord chat. Be sure to follow the Discord. I'm sure that I can share links somewhere around. Create an invite. Hidden, use copy button. I've copied the invite. Can I put it in the Discord? Oh, there we go. I've got a Discord invite. Right. So if you're listening live, join the Discord. Eddie had mentioned that there's news about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, and so has Eddie's good friend John Squires. Texas Chainsaw Massacre writes, update. Taylor Sheridan, Jordan Peele and Oz Perkins pitching takes. Now the news that Eddie had is that we have got a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film coming in September, which is supposedly a prequel, sequel to the original entry. We've had a prequel. Well, we've had two prequels. Texas Chainsaw Massacre the Beginning, which is a prequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from Platinum Doom. Decent. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Not as good as the remake. Pretty good. Pretty grisly. We also had the prequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, Leatherface. That was terrible. That was absolute dog shit, that film, in my humble opinion. But this new entry has a relation to the original 1974 film. Take from that what you will. It's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre timeline is so muddled, really, after the first two films of the original entries. Anything after that, other than the remake by Platinum Dunes, is really up for debate as to if it's worth a watch, to be honest. But anyway, back to the article. Studios and filmmakers are knocking at the door of franchise rights reps Verve to get on board with the future of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, which has gone quiet in the wake of Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre back in 2022. That was okay. Story-wise, some of the characters, yeah. The Sally Hardesty character, they went for the Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, Halloween 2018 approach, the Sarah Connor, Terminator 2, Judgment Day approach. It felt very tacked on. It didn't feel, it felt very odd. But anyway, it was a decent watch for a dumb slasher. It had some good kills in it, but you had to leave your logic at the door. So anyway, names including JT Molnar and even Glenn Powell have already come up, and Deadline's got a fresh update this week. According to the outlet's exclusive report this afternoon, Jordan Peele, Osgood Perkins, and Taylor Sheridan are among the names vying to rev up their chainsaws. Deadline reports, talks for who will wind up with the Texas Chainsaw IP are beginning Monday, as anywhere from 5 to 8 studios and or streamers are vying for the rights. Myriad notable creative entities have teamed up with studios to pitch Verve and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre rights holders on their vision, Deadline's report continues. Taylor Sheridan, of Yellowstone fame, is reportedly looking to come on board to produce a new installment, while Jordan Peele and his Monkey Paw Productions have their own take. Osgood Perkins, meanwhile, would produce and co-write a new Chainsaw movie in a different package, with Brian Bottino directing that particular project. According to Deadline, the Perkins-Bottino collab would be a neon package. As for the package JT Molnar is attached to, that's a TV project for A24. JT Molnar did Strange Darling, which I loved. I thought that was an absolutely brilliant film. It's a TV project for A24 that producers Roy Lee and Glenn Powell are part of. Lee is also attached to a potential separate feature film project with Netflix. Deadline also notes in today's deep dive report. Head over to Deadline to learn more. And keep in mind that these are all projects being pitched to the rights holders through Verne, none of which could ultimately end up taking shape. Verve has represented the franchise's rights since 2017. Okay, Ghouls and Fiends, that does remind me there is a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4K, which I need to have a look how much that is. Oh, it comes out in August, not yet, but that does look nice. Add that to my basket. Anyway. Oh god, I'm going off on a tangent now. Looking at all these Texas Chainsaw 4K releases. So, who would I want to take on this project? Who would I want? Fran says a couple of things in the chat. Did you say Jordan Peele? So it's a coin flip on if it'll be decent or not. Yeah. Jordan Peele's an interesting one. From a comedy background, I think it's hilarious. I've never seen a proper episode of Key and Peele, but I always see clips of it, and every time it knocks it out the park. Really, really funny stuff. Really funny approaches and commentaries, and just really, really funny. Get Out, brilliant. I really, really, really enjoyed Get Out, and I feel it stands up to repeat viewings. I think the music in it is great, and the performances in it are brilliant. I loved Get Out. Us. I feel I should give that a rewatch, but I remember being incredibly disappointed with Us, and I remember thinking the ending was lame. It was one of those things where it felt like it had to give a real info dump to explain what was actually going on, but that explanation I thought was just ridiculous. I'm not necessarily saying that I have an alternate explanation. I did think the reveal at the end of the character switch, I thought, okay, well that's interesting enough, but in terms of the what and the why, yeah. And then Nope, I gave up on Nope. Nope, I think by the time Nope had come around, I just wasn't that interested. And when I gave it a watch, it was just a bit too stop-start for me, personally. They just kept having these moments of just sudden hit to black, and then we're into a different scene, and just like, I don't know. Again, Nope, I probably need to give a rewatch, but it wasn't hitting for me. Osgood Perkins, I loved Longlegs. I thought the marketing for Longlegs was incredible. I thought Longlegs as a film was brilliant. I thought all the performances, I mean, I love Micah Monroe. I love Nicolas Cage. Tick, 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 tick. Loved it. I thought the ending was great. You know, I straight away became an Osgood Perkins fan from Longlegs. The Monkey, I feel like I need to give that a rewatch, because it was hit and miss. It had very, very good entertaining kills in it, for sure. But at the same point, it was a bit... I didn't think Theo James was particularly that endearing in it. And I also felt like the storyline went very cartoonish, overtly cartoonish. I certainly think that I enjoyed it more than Cuckoo, which was another film of that ilk that I had high expectations of due to the hype, the marketing, but then felt a little bit like something was missing. I enjoyed the Monkey more than Cuckoo, but that being said, not so sure. Now, Working with Brian Bettino, The Strangers. Again, I'm not a huge Strangers fan, so that doesn't really mean too much to me, to be honest. A TV project for A24 with Roy Lee, JT Molnar, and Glenn Powell. I mean, I like Twisters. I thought Twisters was good. My fiance liked Twisters. I think she liked it for Glenn Powell. I liked it for the Twisters and the action. TV series A24, I would be hyped for. But Crystal Lake, that is a TV series of a horror property at A24 that has hit a few roadblocks. It is still happening, but we no longer have the Brian Fuller package, which I was looking forward to. The guy did Hannibal. I'm not so sure. I don't want the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre film to be straight to streaming. I like the accessibility that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw 2022 had, but I much prefer horror to be hitting in the cinema. I love a cinema trip. Sometimes the people in the cinema can be annoying, but if you're watching a really tense film with some good scares, some good jumps in it, there's nothing better than watching on a huge screen with surround sound and a big old bucket of popcorn with an enormous sugar-free drink, where I have a number of different flavours in it, and it just doesn't really make much of a difference to the taste. So I would hope for a cinema release rather than straight to streaming, and rather than TV. I think a TV project would hit a bit better if we'd had a recent film that worked, like the Alien TV series coming after Romulus, and Romulus being something I really enjoyed. Anyway, let's move on. We've just got two more bits to go through. Drag Me to Hell, The Strangers both hit Steelbook 4K UHD from Scream Factory. Alex DiVincenzo writes, previously only available as Walmart exclusives, The Strangers and Drag Me to Hell will be widely released on Steelbook 4K Ultra HD and Blu-ray August 12th and August 19th respectively. 2008 home invasion film The Strangers is written and directed by Brian Bettino, who also did The Dark and the Wicked, which was pretty good. It comes with a 4K UHD on one disc of the unrated version, along with a Blu-ray disc containing the theatrical version, a number of featurettes and deleted scenes, and then a third disc of Blu-ray containing the unrated version, writing and directing the Strangers featurette. Kip Weeks on playing the Man in the Mask, Laura Margolis on playing Pin-Up Girl, and Kevin Gruterd on editing The Strangers. The Strangers, if you don't know, is after 4 a.m., knock at the door and a haunting voice. Kristen McKay and James Hoyt find their remote getaway becomes a night of psychological terror as three masked strangers invade. Faced with unscrutable tormentors, Kirsten and James must go beyond what they think they're able to endure if they have any hope to survive. Now, I do like a good steelbook, and I do like the artwork for this. Yeah, The Strangers is just a film that I watched it when it came out. I thought it was decent, but it certainly didn't stick with me. Not to the point where I was rushing to watch the sequel, Pray at Night, I think it's called. Certainly not to the point that I'd spend premium for a UHD steelbook. Similar to the other film, 2009 supernatural horror film Drag Me to Hell, directed by Master of Horror Sam Raimi from a script he wrote with elder brother Ivan Raimi. So you have a 4K UHD with the unrated and theatrical versions on a 4K scan. You've also got a Blu-ray with the unrated version, 4K from the original DI film negative. Making of, a number of makeup effects discussions, and then another Blu-ray disc with the theatrical version in 4K, a 4K scan, I should say. Interview with actor Alison Lohman, interview with actor Lorna Raver, number of different elements on there. Christine Brown is on her way to having it all. A devoted boyfriend, a hard-earned job, promotion, and a bright future. But when she has to make a tough decision that evicts an elderly woman from her house, Christine becomes the victim of an evil curse. Now she has only 3 days to dissuade a dark spirit from stealing her soul for an eternity of unthinkable torment. Again, steelbook artwork on this looks very, very cool. Very, very nice. Drag Me to Hell is also just one of those films that I watched it at release. I didn't like I could tell that it was made for a 3D cinema because the things popping out. There's like an eyeball that pops out. There's a lot of hands going towards the camera, and whenever I see that in a film, I didn't like 3D at the time when you're watching it with the glasses. I don't like films now where it's so obviously made for 3D because particular moments have been made to utilise that, and I always thought it was corny. I do enjoy Sam Raimi, obviously the Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, but I think later Raimi, I just didn't like the over-the-top CGI. Like, he's always been over the top, but I like the over-the-top practical effects of the earlier stuff. I'm not a big fan of the CGI-ness. I didn't really get on that well with Scarlet Witch. Well, no, it wasn't Scarlet Witch. It was Doctor Strange, Mouth of Madness, I think was the subtitle. Speaking of Marvel, I finally got around to watching a new Marvel film on Disney Plus, Captain America, Brave New World. All right. Entertaining enough. It was okay. Anyway, but yeah, Drag Me to Hell. Maybe I need to give it a rewatch, but I watched it at the time of release and I was like, you know, that was my response. I wasn't annoyed. I wasn't excited. I was just, meh. Multiverse of Madness, both Eddie and Fran have said in the chat. Yeah, it's, again, the story elements of it, I'm sure I would like, but it was post-Endgame, and for a long time with Marvel films, post-Endgame, they just, for me, weren't really hitting. I think for a lot of people. So I'd like to get back into Marvel. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I enjoyed Ant-Man Quantumania, whatever it was, Quantumphenia. The third Ant-Man film. I didn't really like the first two. The third Ant-Man film I actually thought was okay. Brave New World. So I think the only Marvel film that I haven't probably seen is Be the Marvels. Maybe one or two others. Anyway. Finally, in the horror news, Ready or Not, Here I Come wraps filming and sets April 2026 release. Your boy John Squires writes, filming has wrapped on Ready or Not 2 from returning directors Radio Silence, and Searchlight Pictures has announced an April 2026 release date for the film this afternoon. Ready or Not, Here I Come opens theatres on April 10th, 2026. Check out a first look behind the scenes photo below while you wait for more. Samara Weaving is back, starring Ready or Not 2 alongside Catherine Newton, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean Hattersey, Nesta Carbonell, Elijah Wood, and horror master David Cronenberg. Kevin Durant was also featured in the sequel's cast. Matt Bettinelli Open and Tyler Gillett are back to direct for Searchlight Pictures with a script by original Ready or Not writers Guy Busick and R. Christopher Murphy. We're thrilled to be returning to the world of Ready or Not with Samara, said Bettinelli, Olpen and Gillett. So, we're excited to work with this immensely talented cast and the incredible artists across every department joining the Ready or Not family. Searchlight's Matthew Greenfield adds, we're beyond excited to make another film with a phenomenal Radio Silence. We get to go on another ride with the amazing Samara Weaving, mix in awesome new voices and bring audiences a fresh take that's every bit as twisted and fun as the first one. This is for those who've been waiting, and those who didn't see it coming. The first film, in 2019, followed a young bride, played by Weaving, as she joined in her new husband's rich, eccentric family in a time-worn tradition that turned into a lethal fight for survival. Yeah, I enjoy Radio Silence ever since the first VHS film, which made me a huge fan of that series straight off the bat. Ready or Not is good fun. It is good fun, and Samara Weaving's great. She kind of smashes it in every performance she has. She has a little cameo in Scream 6, which is a great way to open the film, but it's one of those things, kind of like Sarah Michelle Gellar in Scream 2, where you're just like, I'd have liked them to be like a main cast, but at the same point, you can't introduce people and not kill off the majority of them. So her returning again to the horror genre, she did Azrael last year, which is pretty darn good on Shudder. Oh. And having her return with Radio Silence, I'm very, very hyped for that. Catherine Newton, I only really know from Abigail, and I think she was in, I want to say Happy Death Day, but I may be wrong on that. Yeah, good cast. Good cast. Excited to see what they do with the sequel. I did feel that the ending for the first film was fairly definitive. I think it wrapped things up quite nicely, but I got faith in this directing team, and you know, it's a good cast, so I'm going to hold my thought until I watch it. I'm open to seeing what they do. Anyway, Ghouls and Fiends, that is it for the horror news. That was the news. Oh. Boom. Tezz has officially lost the plot. Where'd you get that from, Eddie? That's hurtful. That's hurtful. It's time for the reviews. And we're going to start off with a not quite so new film. It's new-ish for home viewing, as in it's not full price. It's not that home premiere price where it's like £15 to watch it once at home or £25 to own it digitally. No. It's available to rent or buy digitally, and I think you can also buy a hard copy now. But I finally got around to watching Companion, which I wanted to say was an A24 release, but it's not. It's New Line Cinema. Fran in the chat says you have to have something before you can lose it. God damn, I'm getting roasted in the chat today. Companion is a 2025 American science fiction thriller film starring Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid as a couple on a weekend getaway with friends at a remote cabin, which unravels into chaos after a revelation that one of the guests is a companion robot. The film was written and directed by Drew Hancock and produced by Zach Kreger, Roy Lee, Rafael Marquez, and J.D. Lifshitz. Lucas Gage, Megan Suri, Harvey Guillen, and Rupert Friend also appear in supporting roles. So, this is one of those films where the reveal of a robot, an android, came out in the marketing. The very first trailer I saw for this in the cinema was very, very effective in that it wasn't obvious that there was a science fiction element, a robot element. It had this couple having a seemingly nice weekend getaway before then having a scene at a dinner table where it appears the Jack Quaid character is instructing his partner to hold her hand above a candle and her hand starts burning. Quite creepy, quite effective. But then very quickly in the trailers, the later trailers and the marketing imagery, it was very clear that Sophie Thatcher's character is an android. I guess you have to have a marketing spin to create that interest. I get that. But I also feel that it is much nicer to go into things and have those revelations occur without being foreshadowed quite so much. It's not so much like it's a spoiler. It's not like the reveal of her being an android happens in the final third of the film. It's probably in the first, after maybe a half an hour. I think it's in the final 2/3 of the film is the reveal. But I don't know. I think I would have liked maybe that to have been more of a surprise in the film, but I guess then how can you market it without giving... Well, actually, you could market it because it shows her in peril quite a few times. Yeah, I think that would be a minor complaint of mine in terms of that being revealed. But we're going to do what we usually do with our reviews. We're going to talk about the highs, the lows. Then we're going to give it a score out of 10. We'll talk a little bit briefly about the plot first. A young woman, Iris, recalls meeting her boyfriend Josh for the first time. Later, they travel to an isolated lake house to meet friends Kat, couple Eli and Patrick, and Sergey, Kat's boyfriend who owns the house. The next day, Sergey attempts to sexually assault Iris at the lakes, and Iris kills him in self-defense. Blood-soaked and panicked, she returns to the house, attempting to explain what happened. Josh tells her, Iris, go to sleep, shutting her down. She awakens tied to a chair, being informed that she is a companion robot that Josh is renting from robotics company Emphatics, and her emotions and intelligence can be controlled by an app on Josh's phone. Won't say too much more because from there is where the film really opens up. But that's the gist of the setting, is she is not aware that she is a companion robot, and she has essentially found herself committing a heinous crime, a crime which isn't in her development programming. It's something she shouldn't be able to do. But it starts to become quite apparent that there's a particular reason that she was able to do that. There's a particular reason why she was in that scenario in the first place. And it's almost as if these situations have been orchestrated to lead her to committing this self-defense crime. But she isn't going to fall on her USB stick just quite so easily like that. It's an interesting little film, this. I mean, Sophie Thatcher is an actress that is really, really making a name for herself. Also, I mean, predominantly in the world of horror, but I think also in other areas. I mean, I first became aware of her in Yellow Jackets, season 1. I'm still on the fence as to whether I'm going to continue season 2. It's not like it's bad, it's just got quite boring. And there's a third season, which I've heard very much of the same sort of ilk of season 2, where it's like, it's okay, but it's just not quite as gripping as series 1, and maybe that's because of the big gap in releases of seasons. But anyway, she's very, very good in that. She also had a good role in the film that I was a bit disappointed in, Heretic. Heretic is available now to stream on Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, it is available on there. If you haven't seen it, see what you think. I like Hugh Grant. I like Sophie Thatcher. Can't remember the name of the other actress in it. It just felt a bit pompous. It felt a bit too preachy. It was basically an hour and a half of monologues from Hugh Grant's character, is what it felt like to me. And the ambiguity of the ending... I sometimes like ambiguity, but by the point I'd got that far, I was like, oh God, I just don't care. Yeah, anyway, we've gone off on a tangent there about Heretic. Maybe we'll watch that on the watch party. No, not happening. But she's very good in this. Jack Quaid gets a little bit of a bad rep as being what's known as a nepo baby. A nepo baby basically means someone in an industry who has got there due to their family members, due to, whether that's their parents, people in their family. You have it a lot in music where you can have someone who comes out of nowhere that's really mediocre and gets everywhere out of nowhere, and you sort of think, bloody hell, how? And it can sometimes be a case of, their mum was an author who's got major publishing rights, or their parents were musicians and whatnot. And it basically can give an in into the industry. You could argue that for Jack Quaid, son of Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid, but actually, he's had quite a variety of interesting roles where he's playing either the plucky everyman, just the nice guy, or he's doing a subversion of that, playing the nice guy that's actually a bit of a psychopath, like Richie in Scream. His role in this, where he seems like a bit of a nice guy, but actually he is a little bit of a misogynistic psycho. I do like the range in his abilities, so I think he may have got into his position through the contacts of his family, but actually it's pretty good. Pretty good. Lucas Gage in this, I recognised him from Smile 2. Pretty good role in this. And Harvey Guillen, for fans of What We Do in the Shadows TV series. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's all on Disney Plus, and it's got Matt Berry in it. What's not to love? But he plays Guillermo in that. Very, very good. So, I thought this film was pretty good. It didn't completely smash it out the park. It didn't blow me away, but I liked the twists and turns in it. It's the sort of film where it doesn't rely on over gore and violence, but the moments that it does have can be quite sudden, quite shocking. There's also a few moments of terror, almost Terminator-esque terror, that I thought were quite effective near the latter parts of the film. You really do find yourself rooting for Sophie Thatcher's character Iris. It's an odd film where the protagonist is the android and the humans are the antagonists. It's kind of a little bit of the opposite Terminator, but I dug this actually. I think I can't really just speak too much on the score. Nothing stood too much out for it, but it did have some good moments, like in the soundtrack. Let's have a quick look on what songs were in the soundtrack that may have stood out to me. I don't have the soundtrack here, of course. Why would I? But yeah, it's a nice film. It's nice. It's decent. It's not a thriller in so much where it's super, super tense. But there are a few moments of hunting in the woods throughout a house where you do have to question what's going to occur. And there was a death near the end that I thought was very, very well done. Nice little callback, but with a psychotic twist. I think that for me, this is a solid 7 out of 10. It's not like it fell short of the expectations because I didn't have massive expectations. I didn't know too much about what to think. I would have liked to have seen this at the cinema, but I'm glad that I still got around to watching it. It's not like with Heart Eyes, where I initially thought I'd have liked to have seen that at cinema, but then when I actually got around to watching it, I was like, it's all right. It's okay. It didn't quite live up to the expectations of the director and the cast for me. But Companion, I think, it's worth a watch. It's a good film. Good film, worth a watch. If you want to rent it for $5, you can do on Prime and streaming services. If not, it may well appear on streaming services, as part of their platforms soon. Who knows? Next up, I watched the new film from director Christopher Smith, Consecration. I watched this a couple of weeks ago, actually. It comes to digital platforms on the 16th of June. I believe the embargo has lifted. I probably should actually check that. Let me just check. Consecration. Because I don't want to go ahead and watch it and then get myself in trouble. Or don't want to go ahead and review it and get myself into a bit of trouble. Consecration embargo. There we go. Embargo Monday the 2nd of June. Okay, thank God. Okay, so Consecration stars Jenna Malone, Danny Huston, Thorin Ferguson, Will Keane, and Dame Janet Sussman. Directed by Christopher Smith, who co-wrote the film with Laurie Cook, who did Lord of Misrule, which I thought was decent, Don't Hang Up, I think I might have seen, and Triangle. So, let's talk briefly about the plot of this one. After the suspicious death of her brother, a priest, Grace goes to the Mount Saviour convent in Scotland to find out what really happened. Once there, she uncovers murder, sacrilege, and a disturbing truth about her own past. So, straight off the bat, you can tell that there's some production values behind this. Christopher Smith is a director who I thoroughly enjoyed Creep, as disturbing as it is in places. I think he also did Severance. I'm sure he was involved in Severance, the Danny Dyer film, and I really like that. I may be wrong on that, but I'm sure he was involved in Severance. But I never got around seeing Triangle, which I've always heard good things about. Outside of that, he has still been releasing films, but to a lot less fanfare, not as much talk about them, I have to say. Kind of similar, I suppose, to the trajectory of God, his name escapes me now. The Dog Soldiers director, who his early entries like Dog Soldiers, like The Descent, a few other things were very, very good and highly received, and then more recent, feature films have been not had as much wide release, straight to streaming, that sort of thing. So it can happen. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're following the same sort of trajectory. As I say, I've not really kept up too much with Christopher Smith, but very good cast for this. Jenna Malone, Danny Huston, names that straight away jumped out to me. Neil Marshall is who I'm thinking of, Fran, in regards to the Dog Soldiers director. Thank you. With this, the only things that hold this back from being a really good, neat little horror are a couple of moments of CGI, where I get why it had to be done that way to achieve the scenes, but within the budget constraints. But they're a little bit like, that's obviously CGI, and could it have been done a different way without? I don't know. But anyway, it's a film which is very much a psychological horror film. We are seeing events unfold from multiple different angles. I mean, the film opens up with a nun approaching a car with a handgun. And straight away you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not entirely sure that this is a scenario where that sort of thing should be happening, but you've got my attention. I will introduce a Jenna Malone's character who receives a phone call about her brother has passed in circumstances that are being investigated as unnatural. And when she goes to this this Scottish convent to do her own investigation, I believe she works in journalism, it's starting to become quite apparent that something odd is going on at the convent. The nuns are quite evasive with the questions, some eccentric characters. But as she's going around and looking into what is going on at this nunnery, there's a few instances where quite odd supernatural occurrences are happening, in terms of a nun going to attack her with a knife before suddenly stopping still, and then her wrist breaking that's holding the knife, and then the knife being plunged by themselves into themselves, but, you know, just through no control of their own, but in terror of the person that they're in front of. It makes you question, are these things happening in Jenna Malone's character's head? Or is something supernatural going on here? Now, normally I can be a little bit like, oh, God. When it's all in someone's head, I think, oh, fuck off. It's not that. That's not the sort of storyline beats that interest me too much. But for this, it does do it in quite a good way, where you're not overtly thinking that she is going insane. There's that question mark that can be there, but it's not done in such a way where straight away the whole plot is revolving around her losing her sanity. You know, that's more of an underlying element there. The focus is on what is going on at this convent. What happened to her brother? Who would kill her brother? And how has she found herself in this situation? And how does it connect to her upbringing with her brother? It's pretty effective in the way that the story develops, in the way that we are getting answers. Things aren't left up to too much ambiguity. You don't need to scrutinize too much. And there are moments where, again, later on, supernatural occurrences happen, deaths happen. But we do get a reveal over how this was occurring and who was orchestrating these events. It does it in quite a nice little neat way that I really actually quite dug. And that's why I said that that I actually don't really have any major issues with this film. The score in it is fairly by the numbers for tense psychological thriller horror. There's not too much in that area that stood out, but it was nothing really negative, so to speak. Performances, again, you know, you've got Dame Janet Suzman as well. I thought was very good in this, but it's predominantly focusing on Jenna Malone and Danny Huston's characters. The moments of violence are few and far between, but are effective in how they unfold. And there's a particular torture scene in a flashback which is really quite disturbing, so that was effective. But there was only a couple of moments really with CGI where I just don't think that was maybe necessary. I think there was another way to show that scene without it having to occur in such a blatant CGI way. And that is just me nitpicking, but that's, you know, I am kind of here to give a review and give my thoughts. I think it is worth a watch. Is this a return to form for Christopher Smith? I can't really comment because I haven't seen enough of his later films to say if his form dipped. But should this be seen by a wider audience? Yeah, I think so. 7 out of 10 for Consecration. Pretty good performances in this. Great directing. I think it's worth a watch. 7 out of 10. And then finally on the reviews, I also got sent a film which I did say, that looks cool, I'd like to review that. So I opened myself up for this without reading into it. The art snippets of Lesbian Hot Tubness probably should have given away maybe the directing behind it, but alas, I didn't look that far into it. I watched Piglet. So, Piglet, directed by Andrea M. Catinella, written by can't remember, something Buxley. I'll have to look on the IMDb. Let's just bring up the IMDb. Let's bring up IMDb. Piglet. Harry Boxley. The Harry Boxley joint. And I think Andrea Catinella might have also done. No, he didn't. I thought they might have done Mouse of Horror, but no. No such luck. On Kate's 21st birthday camping trip, her friends encounter Piglet, a monstrous human-pig hybrid who brutally murders one of them. They uncover Piglet's origins, and Kate must confront her past to survive the relentless killer. Okay. So, I think within the first 2 minutes I realised that this may be connected, and I had to pause the film and go to IMDb. And that's where I saw the name Harry Boxley, and that was when I clicked on that name and saw Mouse of Horrors. But the film opens with a transportation van carrying a large man with long hair and I think a bag over their head, and they're tied up with loads of chains to the back of this truck. And he got two individuals, and one is the driver that's got out to go for a pee or play on his phone. And the two individuals have got the little baseball hats on that say security. And while there, they then have a discussion with the prisoner. And I think it was the audio levels and the acting that made me question, wait a minute, is this connected to Mouse of Horrors? Because the audio levels had that thing where the music is quite loud, but the dialogue at the same time is quite quiet. Not that thing that you sometimes get with films on streaming or on physical media, where you play it and the non-diegetic music, the soundtrack, is really loud. But then when that dies down and it comes to dialogue, the dialogue's really quiet. So you turn it up to hear the dialogue. And the dialogue finishes, and then the music comes in. It's like, boom, really loud. It's not like that. No, it's music playing while characters are talking, but the music isn't in the background. The music's at a normal sort of level, but the dialogue's just quite quiet. So that was one giveaway. And then when the prisoner breaks free, because he's a prisoner that's been in a prison, he's killed over half of the inmates, where it's like, yes, one prisoner killed half of the population of the prison. Right, okay, and now they're being transported by two small people in a in a little transport van that's been rented from Enterprise, or something like that. They mention talk of a doctor who'd experimented on him to make him a human-pig hybrid. I'm fairly sure, without looking into it, that that's the same doctor who made the Winnie the Pooh and mouse killer in Mouse of Horror. But it's a similar thing where it's a monstrous human-pig hybrid. But it's established that the pig mask is a mask, that's not his face. He has a bag over his head, and when he takes it off, I'm sure he then finds the mask and puts that on. I'm sure there's a scene where he's putting that on. I will say the mask in this looks better than the Winnie the Pooh and Mouse of Horror mask. But we still have that whole thing in Mouse of Horror, which is an absolutely terrible film. Whereas mask gets knocked off, you don't see his face under the mask, but it, I don't know, horrifies the other character who can't act, and he, whatever, puts the mask back on. But with this, okay, if I can, I'm going to be productive with my review. Yes, the acting is bad in this, but some of the kills are quite gnarly. Now, with Mouse of Horror, near the end, there's one or two kills, like there's like an eye gouge scene or a tongue cutting out scene that I thought, put that into another low-brunt slasher film, gory film, it would work. It's a bit too little too late. With this, it does lean into that a bit more. The kills are quite decent. Again, the audio mixing is the real villain of this film, because the scenes where he's hacking and slashing, there's no sound effects. You need those like thuds and those squelching sounds and those ripping sounds to add something to what's happening. It's all very well having a big beefy character holding like a massive saw or knife or something and slamming it down, but that loses all gravitas, all impact, if there's no additional sound effects to it. You know, that's just sort of basic stuff right there. But if I want to compare the acting to Mouse of Horror, the acting is better in this. Some actors are better than others. There's a guy who sort of employs Piglet to an extent, and when he attacks one of the characters, it's the worst axe chopping scene I've ever seen. Because it's just that there's a few characters that wield axes in this film and don't really know how to wield an axe. They're sort of just holding it, which I don't know if you can see on camera, and moving it towards the person. Moving it towards them. It's an axe, you swing it. And with filmmaking, you would move a character out of the way so that the character isn't actually swinging at somebody, so there's no danger. But even then, use like a rubber axe. But you have to full on swing it to make it look like you're trying to use it effectively. There's a few moments where there's a couple of different scenes with characters swinging an axe, but they're just sort of pushing it at the person. It's like, fucking hell, do another take and do it properly. But I think the reason that is frustrating is because this could have been better. I mean, if we say that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and I've not seen the second one because I've got no interest in watching it, but if we say Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is on a level here, let's say a 3 or a 4 out of 10, Mouse of Horror is down in the dirt. That's like a 1 out of 10. That's much lower. This is somewhere in between the two. I mean, I would say that this is probably comparable to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. But Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is probably made a little bit better. The audio mixing is probably better. It's got a decent little opening animation scene, okay? So it is a better film. Piglet is a better film than Mouse of Horror, which was terrible. But it does have its issues. Issues which could have easily been rectified. Now, the acting is the acting. Okay, fine. It's a B movie. Whatever. B movie slasher, whatever. But just some basic audio mixing. Bring the dialogue up a little bit. Don't have music playing over the top. And if you do, just have that music lower in the mix so you can, just some audio mixing in this. Basic. Sound effects when there's like thuds and slashes and hits and stuff. Just that simple thing. And you can easily make the kills much, much better. The kills are the highlight in this, but they're just a step below what they could be. This could easily be a 4 out of 10, which I know does not sound like high praise. But in that world of, let's say, full moon production films, B-movie horror, you're not looking for highbrow. You're not looking for amazing stories. You're looking for just a cheap slasher film with some good kills and maybe like a halfway entertaining story with, just something like that. That's kind of what you're going for with the B movie. B movie is never going to be a 9 out of 10. It might be a really good B movie in the realm of B movies, but in terms of overall movies, it's a different kettle of fish. It's a different category. But with this, some of the basics really held it back. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 10, which I know is low, but there is potential. There was potential for Piglet to be more entertaining than it was. Do I think that they're going to nail it on the next one? I don't know, because Harry Boxley seems to have found their niche. They've done Popeye's Revenge, Fairest of Them All, Cinderella's Curse, Mouseboat Massacre. Does seem to be churning out these films for, no copyright has lapsed on these Disney characters and properties. Fair enough. You found your niche and you're making a living. It's tough to make a living in that world. I'm not going to begrudge it. But it could be better. It could be better. without too much additional work into it. But hey, we're going with what we've got. So that is it for the reviews. Thank you very much for tuning into another edition of the Ministry of Horror. As mentioned, I think we are going to have to really try and find film series that I haven't touched upon to discuss, whether that is a whole series or whether that's a particular chunk of the series that has some notoriety. Maybe it's a director's work, maybe it's an actor's work in a series, maybe it's a particular character. Hit me up in the Discord. There is a link in the live chat. I will try and pin a link in the X account or directly on X, Ministry_Horror. We are on TikTok. Occasionally put TikTok videos on there, Ministry of Horror. Facebook, Instagram. There's a number of different ways to get in contact. So if you have ideas that you would like feature presentations on that I've not discussed before, let me know. I would like to do the Wrong Turn films. I would like to do Wolf Creek. I believe the Wolf Creek TV series has landed on Prime, so maybe I will try and watch that. And then I'll just need to watch Wolf Creek 2, which I've not seen. But we'll have another look to see if a Wrong Turn box set is available on Prime. Okay, Wrong Turn 1 to 6 is £20. That's not actually that bad. Do I want to pull the plug on the DVDs? I'm more of a Blu-ray boy these days. Don't know. We'll see. Sub on Patreon if you want me to pick up the DVD or Blu-rays. Then join the Patreon. Patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. There's a number of different tiers there. We've been very lax on the bonus show. Apologies for that. It's been the year of getting married. There's always something going on. It's been very, very busy traveling to weddings for family and friends, visiting family. It's been one thing after another. But we are finally going to be doing episode 3 of our Patreon bonus show, 90 Slay Fiancé. But if you're not on the Patreon, don't fear, because on twitch.tv/Tezz next Friday, we'll be doing a live show with my co-host, Victoria, for 90 Slay Fiancé. Next Friday is Friday the 13th. We originally, before the show kept getting moved from week to week, we were going to be taking a look at A Nightmare on Elm Street. She's never seen the original. She's never seen any of those films. But because next Friday is a Friday the 13th, we are going to watch at least the first 2 Friday the 13th films before then. And we'll also have a live review because we're going to hopefully go and watch Dangerous Animals, the new Shark Attack film. So watch this space. There is going to be another live show next week. If I'm not already gaming streaming, there will be another live show, and it will be 90 Slay Fiancé. So check that out. You also get the podcast 48 hours before YouTube and podcast platforms if you're a patron. But yeah, check it out. Anyway, we are going to stick around. We are going to do a live watch party and a bit of a chit chat, listen to some music. But if not, catch you later. Goodbye.